I feel like at some point he's gonna call me a clown. That's his like go-to.
I'll be like, that's me.
135 pounds, 135.1 is official.
It's different levels. You know what I mean? It's definitely different levels when you come.
Jake Paul has always thrived on confidence and controversy, but the recent videos of Gervonta "Tank" Davis's powerful new look seem to have rattled him. As clips showing a noticeably stronger and more muscular Davis spread online, fans began wondering if Paul had misjudged the lightweight champion's transformation. Davis, famous for his speed and knockout power, now appears closer to a natural welterweight, making it clear he's not coming just to entertain but to take control. People close to Paul suggest the YouTuber-turned-boxer is starting to feel the heat, realizing this version of Tank might be far more dangerous than anyone imagined. As the November 14th fight draws near, fans and experts are amazed by Gervonta Davis's incredible physical change. Usually known for his compact build and explosive power, the 5 feet 5 inches lightweight has added serious muscle, looking stronger, quicker, and more dangerous than ever. The striking difference between Davis's new physique and Jake Paul's cruiserweight frame, especially during their tense Miami face-off where Davis pushed Paul, has only fueled the hype. Now that Davis appears like a compact powerhouse, many are wondering if Jake Paul's confidence is starting to fade as he prepares to face an opponent who's not just talented, but now physically intimidating too. Davis has always been admired for his power, speed, and fight intelligence, but his recent physical upgrade has pushed him to a new level. Training footage and photos reveal a stronger build with more muscle, wider shoulders, and a solid core, all without losing his trademark quickness. This isn't about adding size for appearance, it's about getting ready to completely take over in the ring.
Right? Who's not a professional fighter. What happens? What happens? That's what would sell it. I know what the size difference is what creates the problem. The optics, the look, the reality. I mean, you got one guy who's fights at 135 pounds, and you got another guy who fights at 200. I mean, just that alone, yeah. But you also, and I'm not saying I want this or I like this when I heard it. No, I didn't like it, to be honest, for the optics and everything else I just said. But you do have one guy who, yeah, he's smaller, but he's a top fighter, he can punch, and he's fighting a guy who's not a top pro fighter, who's bigger. What if he hits him on it?
In a recent interview, the UFC bantamweight champion made it clear that Gervonta Davis is far ahead of Jake Paul in both skill and fight intelligence. Ali admitted that Paul has some physical advantages but said they won't matter against a fighter like Tank, who's undefeated and known for his knockout power. He also criticized the commission for turning the fight into an exhibition, saying it takes away from the real competitive spirit of the matchup.
Tank. I enjoy these fucking stupid spectacles. I enjoy them. I'm excited for it. The controversy, the press conference, the weigh-ins. Imagine those two stand next to each other. Yeah. Dude, Jake is a big motherfucker. Basically, like you two standing next to each other. Like if you guys stood up, it looks like that. Steiny's a little bit taller than Gervonta.
But I'm a feisty bro. It's not about the size of the dog. It's about the size.
However, many people see the fight more as a crossover show or entertainment event rather than a true championship match, sparking discussion about fairness, safety, and whether it respects the traditional rules of boxing's weight divisions.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum.
Experts argue that most of Jake Paul's fights don't make much sense from a competitive standpoint. They're often set up more for publicity than for true sporting value. Instead of facing opponents who match him in style or weight, Jake keeps picking unusual matchups. To many analysts, this approach makes his fights entertaining to watch but prevents them from being taken seriously as real boxing contests.
In the fight, but yeah, that was that. This time, Jake Paul is to take on Tank Davis. Tank Davis, he was recently in the news for being arrested for a domestic violence incident involving one of his kids' mother. He was alleged to have slapped her about the place. The charges were later dropped, to be fair to him. But yeah, that was when he was last in the news. What is interesting is just a couple of months ago, Tank Davis was saying openly that he'd lost his passion for boxing and that he wanted time away from the sport. There was speculation that he might even retire as he was experiencing extreme mental fatigue from boxing, depression, and there were mental health concerns over him. However, I guess the opportunity to earn a truck full of money, fighting a completely worthless exhibition fight against Jake Paul was enough to make him change his mind about boxing. Funny that, isn't it? But you know what? I'm not even going to waste your time or mine critiquing this utter nonsense. Suffice to say that this so-called fight we're talking about is an exhibition, and it pits Jake Paul, who is a cruiserweight, by the way, weighs in excess of 200 pounds, and Tank Davis, who is, he was the WBA lightweight champion, who weighs in at about 135 pounds when he fights. So that's a disparity of some 65 pounds. In old money, that's about 4.5 stone. There's also a significant difference in height. Jake Paul is roughly, 6'1".
Jake Paul weighed in at 199.5 pounds as a cruiserweight, while Gervonta Tank Davis last fought at 133.5 pounds in the lightweight division. This huge difference led the Georgia State Athletic Commission to reject the original venue over safety concerns, forcing the event to move to Miami. Although the exhibition now has a 195-pound limit, Davis's new, stronger build shows he's working to close the gap smartly. Even so, Paul still holds a clear size advantage which could influence power and endurance inside the ring. The matchup of size versus skill makes this one of the most unusual fights in modern boxing.
Those little teeny-weeny dudes. So that's going to be a very fun and interesting to watch how that goes down. Now, on the other side, you know what Jake Paul's going to do. He don't have no consciousness. He doesn't have a conscience about what he's trying to do. He's going to go in there try to hurt a 60-year-old Mike Tyson. He don't care. He wanted to Nate. He's way bigger than Nate Jones when he fought Nate Jones. You think he didn't care about hitting Nate Jones upside the head? He's definitely going to be looking to try to get as much as he can get off on Gervonta Davis, and I see him trying to run up on him, trying to maul him, trying to grab him, trying to club him, trying to do all kind of craziness, man. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Now, let me tell you what I really hope, and I haven't seen for this particular card, but I know that I know it's going to be good, which is the undercard. The undercard for the Canelo Alvarez fight and Terrence Crawford fight is absolutely horrendous. There's nothing on the thing that would make you want to watch to tune into that thing 2 seconds before the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford takes place. There's nothing on that card. So this fight for Gervonta or this exhibition for Gervonta and Jake Paul is probably going to have a lot of MVP fights.
Ryan Garcia compared this fight to past controversial boxing events, like Mike Tyson's exhibition bouts that fans never really wanted. He admitted that most people aren't asking for Davis versus Paul either, but said the boxing world often moves ahead with these kinds of spectacles anyway. Garcia pointed out that Davis is much smaller than Paul, making the matchup unfair from the beginning. Still, he believes fans will end up accepting it because of the massive hype and money pushing it forward.
That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like Mike Tyson, low-key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean,
Right.
the casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis.
Yeah.
And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter.
Yeah.
Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight.
Former world champion Carl Froch didn't hold back, calling the situation a complete joke. He revealed that talks for a Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight were nearly done, with the deal said to be about 99% finalized. But instead of stepping in with a heavyweight like Joshua, Paul chose to fight Davis, who's nearly half his size. Froch said this move makes no sense and shows that Jake cares more about creating headlines than proving himself in real competition.
Davis is now fighting Jake Paul. So Jake Paul was supposed to be fighting AJ. Eddie Hearn announced 99% done, which we've just spoke about. What next for AJ? Potentially Jake Paul. But it now looks like that Jake Paul is fighting one of Anthony Joshua's legs. He's fighting Gervonta Davis, somebody who's a quarter of his size. I don't even know what's going on. Has Eddie Hearn been played? Let me know what you think, but the AJ fight with Jake Paul's finished. Gervonta Davis, fake Paul, November. I don't know what's going on in the world of boxing. This is an absolute joke. What next for AJ? We'll get into this, and there's so many questions I want to get into in the next episode, but hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, I just thought I'd give you a quick update because the news has just come in, and I'm just trying to relax and play a bit of golf, and I can't. I've got to get it off my chest. I'm going to add it to this video. Hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit like, share, and subscribe to the best channel in the business, Froch on Fighting, and we'll see you very soon.
3-division undisputed champion Terrence Crawford views the Paul versus Davis matchup with clear skepticism. He sees it more as a showcase than a real contest because of the major size difference between the two. While he admits that Davis is an explosive and highly skilled fighter, Crawford believes Paul's larger frame gives him a natural edge. He warned that if Paul lands a solid punch, his weight and reach could easily shift the fight in his favor.
What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank.
On the other hand, analysts like Wade Plem believe Jake Paul has brought fresh energy to boxing by drawing in fans who might not have followed the sport before. He notes that Jake's biggest impact has been on younger audiences who enjoy entertainment-focused events more than traditional bouts. Despite the controversy, Clem argues that boosting boxing's popularity and cultural reach matters more than questions of authenticity. Vargas Jr. shares this perspective, emphasizing the excitement of the unexpected. He says the unpredictability of this matchup makes it interesting, since fans love something new. Whether people see it as good or bad, Vargas Jr. believes the shock factor alone makes the fight worth discussing.
And if it makes dollars, it makes sense, and we've seen that Jake will kind of bounce in between doing these entertainment fights and then, you know, trying to push toward his goal of you know, ingraining himself in the sport of boxing, and kind of does both of them. So it's kind of a weird place to be, because he wants the respect of the boxing fans and the boxing hierarchy and hardcore boxing people, but at the same time, he'll gain some of that and then lose some of it. It's like a seesaw of his fights. Like one fight and be like, okay, that's a real fight, or that's a real fighter. And he'll go and he'll win the fight. You know, Julio Cesar Chavez, real fighter, maybe past his prime, whatever, but Jake goes and wins that fight pretty easily, and then gets a lot of respect, gets a lot of the boxing hardcore love, and you have these talks about him fighting Anthony Joshua, and that was going to get even more respect. More people were like, that's fucking crazy. What are you doing? Myself included. That seemed like a massive risk, but a lot of people were like, okay, fair play. Anthony Joshua, that's a real heavyweight. Jake wants to fight him. He's a psycho, but fair play. And then you announce this one, and it's like, well, that's the same thing people have been saying about Jake for years, so it's a weird spot to be in for him for sure. But I talked about this not being the first choice, and I don't think it was, because Coppinger reports next that talks for Jake Paul to face Anthony Joshua collapsed over network issues. Now, we had all heard the talks, and they were pretty public, from Eddie Hearn, from Jake. Nikisa Badarian, Jake's manager, was over in the UK on, I think, Sky Sports, talking about the fight and saying how it was a real possibility, and they were really starting to...
BJ Flores views the Davis fight as a strategic step in Jake Paul's long-term boxing career. He believes Paul's size and physical growth make him a better fit for cruiserweight or heavyweight divisions. By taking on a respected opponent like Tank Davis, Flores says Jake isn't just after a payday. He's building credibility. This fight, in his view, is a springboard that could lead to tougher and more meaningful matchups in higher weight classes. For Flores, the Davis bout isn't the final goal but a calculated move to raise Paul's profile and set up bigger challenges ahead.
I think that the Misfits brings a different element. Obviously, there's chaos and all of these things, and it's not the most buttoned up and it's not the most high level, but there are moments where you have some really competitive fights. And even with the Jake and Gervonta thing, it's like, is it the best thing for boxing? That's boxing's fault, right? Like, if you're going to complain about it, point the finger the other way, because everybody else did it. You guys put yourselves in this position where these kind of fights are more interesting than some of your world title fights. And that's really, really sad, I know, but that's where we're at. And is it Jake's fault for being like, yeah, this is what people want to see, I'm going to do it? Yeah. Is it Gervonta Davis's fault? Maybe a little bit, because he's a world champion. Yeah. Give up your belt. To me, it should be give your belt up, right? You're saying to the world, you don't want to fight Shakur Stevenson, you don't want to fight Lamont Roach, so give the belt up. That's fine. Go do that. Okay. Say you're done at the highest level. Say you have no interest in being a world champion, and I'm okay with it. Yeah. But outside of that, man, I mean, it's a money fight and it's an exhibition. Everybody, I think, kind of knows what that brings in. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with it, but at the same time, boxing needs to get...
Meanwhile, Jake Paul answered the growing criticism around the Davis fight with a flashy, over-the-top stunt. He smashed a tank-shaped cake, symbolically mocking Davis and taking control of the storyline. The act was clearly planned for show, positioning Paul as the villain and keeping the spotlight on him. Instead of letting critics shape the conversation, he turned it into entertainment. The cake-smashing moment sent a clear message: Paul knows how to create buzz. It might seem childish, but in his world, stunts like this keep the hype alive. Love him or hate him, people can't stop talking.
One of my good friends, Armani, he has been working with Jake Paul for the last 2 years. Oh. There was a little time where Shane wasn't there with Jake, and Armani called me up and said, hey, BJ, will you come down to Big Bear and spar with Jake? And I'm like, you want me to spar with Jake? I'm thinking to myself, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, he's beating up all his sparring partners. I was like, all right. I mean, fine, I'll go down there and do it. I have been inactive. I haven't done anything for like 8 months. But I was like, okay, I'll go down there. So we spar a couple times. After that, they decided I was too big for him. And, it's better if we just, not do it. And, then they asked me if I would be interested in like working the mitts with him and helping him with the combinations, because I was hitting him with some combinations they hadn't seen before. And I said, we can teach him all those things and have him doing all those things. And so I started working the mitts with him and helping him out on the mitts. And he told his trainers and everybody, they're like, man, I want BJ around for the entire camp because I'm getting better. My job is like Shane does the advice.
Do you think Jake Paul can handle this stronger, upgraded version of Tank Davis? Share your thoughts in the comments below.